So we've talked about some of the things contributing to our worsening physical and mental health in medicine. Some of these things we can control, others we can't. But today we're talking about the things that we can do to improve our overall health and well-being as healthcare workers. Let's go. The first thing here is to make your own physical and mental health a priority.
Treat yourself.
Realize that it's okay to take care of yourself as well, because it's not uncommon for healthcare workers to put the weight of the world on their shoulders. And while this is admirable, it's also a crushing, debilitating weight that you can only bear for so long before you burn out. But if you can give yourself permission to take care of yourself as well as your patients, this will likely lead to a happier, healthier version of you that can then provide better care for your patients. Once we've given ourselves permission to initiate this self-care, we need to know what levers we can pull in order to have the most profound impact. And sleep is arguably the most important one. It affects every physiological process in the human body. If your sleep is crap, you're gonna feel like crap. It's also one of the best forms of emotional first aid. So when we sleep, our brain processes the information taken in from the day, and for those less than pleasant or stressful experiences, what sleep does is that it effectively smooths everything out to lessen the potency of our emotional reaction to them.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
Furthermore, sleep has downstream effects on subsequent levers that we can pull to improve our physical and mental health, such as diet and exercise. For example, if your sleep is poor, it's more than likely that you're going to make poor food choices relative to if you were well rested. Additionally, it's likely that you'll be less inclined / motivated to exercise regularly, so to improve your physical and mental health with the greatest return on investment, start by prioritizing your sleep. I did already make a video where I dive into the specifics on good sleep habits, which I'll link in the description, and I'll throw some other educational resources down there as well, such as Matthew Walker's fantastic book, Why We Sleep. This is one of my absolute favorite books. If you haven't read it, read this book. The next big lever that we can pull is exercise, and the amount of people that don't participate in any form of exercise whatsoever has always been mind-boggling to me. Our bodies have evolved for movement, and regular exercise is required maintenance to keep the system running smoothly. It's kind of like driving your car every day without ever changing the oil. That car is going to perform well under its baseline capabilities, will become more and more sluggish over time, leading to a cascade of worsening systemic issues until one day it reaches a premature and inevitable death. Morbid, right? Most people would never let this happen to their car, yet many of us completely ignore exercise altogether. But here's the thing, a car can be replaced. You can't. So exercise. If you're looking for some good resources on exercise, two of my favorites are Barbell Medicine and RP Strength. Both have fantastic podcasts if you're looking to educate yourself. They both also have phenomenal templates and coaching for those looking to start a structured exercise regimen. I don't have an affiliation with Barbell Medicine, but I do have a discount code for RP Strength, so if you buy a template or really anything from their website, just enter discount code Josh Corzan and save 10%, but I'll link both companies in the description. Diet is another leverage point that we can address, and similar to the discussion on sleep quality, if you eat like crap, you're gonna feel like crap. I think a significant component of this stems from both the lack of time to eat on shift along with the availability of junk food. When food's provided on the unit, it needs to be cheap so there's enough for everyone, but it also has to appeal to the masses, and this often ends up being something like pizza and cookies. Delicious, right? I know. But this probably isn't the best fuel for productivity and mental clarity amidst a hectic day in the emergency department. Additionally, the food choices in the hospital. Let's face it, it's hospital food. The healthy options, or lack thereof, make even a healthy person like me look over to the fried food section, because it's harder to mess that up.
How do you f up oatmeal?
Another thing that makes healthy food choices more challenging in the hospital is the stress factor. So let's say you're working the emergency department and some delicious pizza has been delivered along with those crack-like chocolate chip cookies that you like so much. You know the ones I'm talking about. You might start the day with unwavering resolve not to eat that junk food.
Never again! I vow it!
But then, boom, the ER gets slammed. You catch some lip from a rude family member, or a patient almost codes. Those cookies are looking pretty damn good now, aren't they? And I think this is a common occurrence. As we accumulate stress throughout the day, our resolve weakens until you blink, and all of a sudden you're 5 cupcakes deep from that truckload that got dropped off by your local pastry shop. Too real? You know who you are. To combat this, I think there's a certain level of discipline required, but if you don't have that right off the bat, it's okay. There's other things that we can do, and I think one of the most effective tools here is meal prepping. A good option for many people would be to prepare your food at home and then bring it to work. This would at least help in the sense that you're not making food choices on the fly when your stress levels are likely at their highest. But if you don't like making your own food, another thing that you could do is use a meal prep service. I used one called Factor in the past, and it was actually pretty good. I don't have an affiliation with them, but I just wanted to provide an example. If you have a high level of buy-in and you want to track your food with a specific goal in mind, such as weight loss, you could also use something like the RP Diet app. This is something I've used in the past, and it's an amazing app. Just an FYI, I'm not using this currently because I don't really currently have an interest in tracking my intake, and also I don't have a current body composition goal, but if I did, this is what I would be using. I'll throw a link for that app in the description below, and just a quick disclaimer, if you do sign up through that link, I will earn a small commission. Therapy is another useful tool that I feel is often underutilized, or at least talked about less often than diet, sleep, and exercise. And cost aside, I think this is likely due to the stigma that surrounds mental health and even therapy itself. But I think everyone would probably be better off with a therapist. They can obviously help you work through any major events, but honestly, even if you don't have any glaring issues, I still think therapy is invaluable. At the very least, it's helpful to have someone there that can listen as an impartial third party, play devil's advocate, and offer feedback. And it's a fantastic tool for introspection. They can help you learn more about why you think the way you do and facilitate your overall growth as a human being. One additional note here, if you're in the field of psychology or psychiatry, you may think that you have a pretty good handle on these things and therefore that you wouldn't benefit from therapy, but I'm of the belief that every coach needs a coach, and by undergoing therapy yourself, it will undoubtedly make you a better therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist. For those interested, I do participate in weekly therapy, not because I have any overtly concerning issues, but rather because I'm big on personal growth, and I think it's really great for that. The service that I use is BetterHelp, and I'll link it below. I don't have an affiliation with them, but it's a great service. One last thing that we can do is to address burnout upstream by capping the hours that we work each week. Short staffing in the hospital leads to incentive pay opportunities, which makes it really tempting to pick up extra hours each week. And while that extra money is nice, there's a trade-off, which tends to be money for sanity. Though extra help really is needed in a lot of these cases, as the frontline worker, it's not your job to staff the hospital. That's for management and human resources. Help out to the best of your ability, but don't let anyone take advantage of you. And that brings us back around to the main theme of this video, which is you have to take care of yourself as well. If you have thoughts on any of these points, please share them in the comments below. Also, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.